everybody doing? How is everybody feeling? Oh, let me turn this volume down a little bit. All right. Hopefully everyone had a awesome start to the month. Happy April. To me, it doesn't feel like April. The weather out here in California is going through some mood swings. So sometimes it feels like it's April and feels like it's spring, and then there's times where it feels like summer, where I'm like, is it August? And then there's times where I'm like, is it December? So yeah, I don't know what day it is, but welcome to April. And thank you so much for tuning in to another Mojo Mondays. All right, so I'm not sure what I would like to title this topic today, but let's normalize placing people where they need to be. Let's normalize placing people where they belong in your life. And I say normalize, and I know that's like such a trendy thing to say. But the thing is, especially for us people pleasers, sometimes we think so much about the other person and how they perceive things, and we have to constantly filter ourselves because we want to make sure that our message or that the way we're interacting with people is being perceived the right way. You know, we don't want to rub people the wrong way. So, but at the same time, there comes a point where it gets exhausting trying to constantly monitor yourself for the sake of someone else's mood. And the thing about it is, people who love you and who care about you and respect you, and they know you deep down, you don't have to do the emotional acrobats for them. You don't have to sit up here and do backflips and all those things and perform for them, because they get you. There's a connection, and you don't have to break things down to them because of, their sensitivities or anything like that. And not to say there's anything wrong with that. I am a very sensitive person, but because I understand my friends and my families and people who I choose to be around, because I get them, I don't take things personally. So although I'm sensitive and I may take things a certain way, or I may overthink and stuff like that, that's just in my nature to do that. I overthink the things that I do all the time. So of course I'm going to overthink when it comes to other people. But I say all that to say, you don't have to second guess yourself when you know people who are around you and your group, your circle. You don't have to go over and beyond because they get you and you get them. But at the same time, there are some people who they have certain expectations, or they may want special treatment, or they might have some type of entitlement. And at the end of the day, people are who they are, and I'm going to treat people accordingly. But at the same time, I'm also going to place you where you need to be in my life at the moment. If I feel that we're just not in alignment, and it's not anything that this person has done. This goes on deep, because this is a people thing. It's not a one person thing. But I say all that to say, we need to get better at normalizing it without overthinking and not trusting ourselves for the sake of someone else's feelings, because we're not responsible for other people's feelings. We're not. And if there is a point where there needs to be a conversation, honestly, it really depends on the depth of the relationship. If it's a relationship where, it's still kind of new and stuff, people are still figuring each other out, and it takes time. It takes time to get to know people on a deeper level. And not everything needs to be said. Not everything needs to be a situation where we have to have a conversation about every single thing. But what I'm saying is, there comes a point where things may come up, and you might have to step yourself back, create a little bit of boundaries. And this again goes for anybody. An example, there was I'm gonna call him Baby Boy, because he had a lot of baby boy tendencies. If you've seen the movie Baby Boy with Tyrese and Snoop Dogg and Taraji Henson, I think Taraji Henson. There's a few other people in there too. But if you've seen that movie, comment below. If you know, you know. But back when I was dating, I went on a couple dates with this person, with Baby Boy, and he seemed very, very outgoing. And I told him, we don't have to like go to the bar, because I'm not a huge drinker like that, but that was his thing. So, and like I said, we went on a couple dates, so it wasn't like a huge deal. But again, it's one of those things where it's like, are people actually listening? Are they listening to you? Or, anyway, that's a whole other thing. But anyways, we went to a bar and we started having a conversation. I don't know how it came up, but his baby mama came up. And he was saying how they had some differences when it came to going on vacation and taking the child on to some trip, during their school break. And my thing is, I'm not really up for any type of drama. I don't care what it is. I don't really do well with it. I'm the kind of person where if there's like a misunderstanding and we can't come to an agreement, then we're just gonna just go our separate ways and just let it. But I am not going to make it a big deal. I'm really not, because I don't have the time for that. But obviously it was bothering him. So, I listened, but he began to get upset because I told him, well, remember in the beginning when we talked about our exes and our dynamic, and I asked, if you have any drama with your baby mama, or however you choose to approach her? Do you have any type of, beef or whatever? And I ask these questions, for one, I want to see if this person has learned from their past and see if they take accountability and not play victim and they're constantly blaming the other person. Or I want to see if there's still some type of dynamic going on. And in the beginning, lies. Like, oh, we're like best friends, we only talk about our child when we do have conversations, and it was for the best, it was mutual, blah, blah, blah. So in my mind, I'm thinking, well, what happened to that? Because what you're telling me now, the beef or drama that you guys are having now, that's not what was said, when we first began talking to each other. So that was a red flag, obviously. And then, and I was completely honest. I said, hey, maybe the dates can change, and maybe you shouldn't take things so personally, because at the end of the day, when it comes to your guys' child or whatever, you have to decide, okay, you go on this trip these days with the mom, and then I'll take you on these days. Like, don't make it a big deal, but also don't tie yourself to it. And I found through conversation, he was tying himself to it. There was still some emotional baggage he had. So instead of coming to an agreement, it's like his ego was bruised. He wasn't getting his way, or he needed to be right or whatever. So it was answering a lot of the questions from the beginning, when they don't answer, So I began slowly distancing myself, keeping conversations super dry, because at that point I was no longer interested. And I noticed this person began to get a little more aggressive. And my thing is, you can be in your feelings or however, but I have the right in my life to put you wherever I want. And then also, again, we have to consider the person and also consider the dynamic. Obviously, if it was someone I've known for a long time and someone who we've had a deeper relationship with, a deeper bond, then obviously things would be different. I didn't like ghost this person or anything like that. I just kept my distance and I kept my responses short. And and I ended up telling them like, hey, I had fun. The 2 times went out, but I just don't think we're a good match. So, there's that. But I say all that to say, when you come more into yourself, into your own person, because we're all individuals, and sometimes we forget that. We forget the power we have. We are coming into our own, into being our own person. And there's so much beauty and so much power in that. So this video is really to help inspire anybody, regardless of age, inspire anyone to ignite their individual power and normalize placing people where they need to be. You don't have to explain yourself. Again, and I'm going to rewind because everyone's different. Everyone's lifestyle is different. Everyone is, but again, this is just to be an inspiration to those, especially those who tend to people please. Because I kid you not, if this situation would have happened like in my early 20s, I would have stayed too long. And in a wrong relationship, I would have stayed way too long. And because I would have felt bad for him and see things his way and only his way and ignore my feelings. And my thing is, we collectively as people pleasers, former people pleasers, empaths, sensitive people, whoever this resonates with, we have to do better at acknowledging two things or more. You can feel bad for someone and feel all the feelings that they're feeling and understand, okay, this is a deep situation, a deep issue for them. But you don't have to ignore your feelings. It does not have to be extreme. It does not have to be to the point where you're going over and beyond and you're completely just ignoring your feelings, you're ignoring your thoughts, you're ignoring your intuition. So let's normalize placing people where they need to be, whether if it's a friend or whoever, because not everybody deserves access to you. All of us, and I say all of us because all of us are precious. We are human beings. We are full of different energies, and a lot of us don't realize how that can affect your life, your environment. And again, it doesn't necessarily mean that this person has to be cruel or mean. Again, a lot of it can be a misunderstanding or there's a misalignment. And all of us are not meant to be in each other's lives like 24/7 up under each other. Sometimes people are just passing through. Sometimes there's lessons and blessings that come along the way when you're passing each other by. And we got to leave it at that at times. We got to leave it at, okay, what lesson did I learn from this? Or we got to leave it at, okay, this was amazing. This was an amazing experience. And sometimes, again, and I said this in a previous video too, sometimes with people we grow apart, or there might be a time, whether if it's a month, years, or whatever, and leave it at that. Don't force anything. Sometimes forcing things just make things worse because you have an attachment to something or someone, and you don't want those attachments to be unhealthy attachments, or those attachments turn toxic. It's not Nah. Once you get over the hunch and you're on this healing journey, you want things that feel good to you, not in an attachment way, but when you are around them, your nervous system isn't all fucked up, So, and like I said, it's not necessarily that people may do bad things, because sometimes it's not a bad thing. Sometimes it's confusion or some type of misunderstanding or whatever, and that can make things feel a little weird. But don't force it. Let people be who they are, and you don't have to overextend yourself. You don't have to. You can feel how you feel. You can still acknowledge the other person and their situation, but you don't have to tolerate it. For what? You can back yourself on up and keep it pushing. So yeah, I encourage anyone who's been feeling a certain way, they're not too sure about something or someone. Sometimes those feelings are happening for a reason, and we may not need to have a solution right away, but just back yourself on up and give it time, give it space, and allow that person or allow that situation to present itself. And as it's presenting itself, and you feel like that person is getting a little more aggressive and things of that nature, then it's kind of in a way confirming what you have already been feeling. So allow things to happen on its own time, and don't overextend yourself for anybody, unless obviously, it's a loved one, but all these new people and stuff like that, they don't deserve you at your fullest when it comes to you pouring into them. You can be there, be a friend, be a good coworker, but you don't have to overextend yourself. And if they're feeling if they're feeling entitled or whatever, then that's their problem, to be honest. You ain't got nothing to do with that. Bye-bye.